behalf of you who are here on LinkedIn, hello. We will have a degree of interactivity today. I'm Dermot. I'm the brand ambassador for X Plus, and I'm here mainly so that Pavel doesn't have to speak exclusively for the next 30 minutes by himself.
Hello,
Today,
everyone.
we want to talk to you about some interesting topics and about what they can deliver for you. So, we're going to talk about how this improves your profitability, how it masters your inventory, and how it streamlines your flow. I would like to welcome, on behalf of all of you, our audience, Pavel. So, Pavel is our technical genius, or the professor, as I like to call him, because he knows this subject matter absolutely inside out. And we'll try to keep him brief so he gets you all the nice, sexy points that makes your life easier without having to go into too much technical depth. Pavel has a fantastic depth of experience, both in terms of working within production environment and working within a technical environment, and then working from the Microsoft. So, Pavel, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Dermot. Today, we're going to cover a topic of demand-driven material requirement planning. We'd like to discuss some planning challenges with you, point the origins of DDMRP, present you a core principles of DDMRP, and show you how Microsoft Dynamics 365 handles the DDMRP. Then we'll come back to benefits of demand-driven material requirements planning.
Okay, so Pavel, can you talk us in terms of what the difference is between how that looks now and how it looked at the emergence of this in the early 70s?
So these planning challenges points come from Demand-Driven Institute, and they show the difference how the environment changed from the 70s of the previous century to now. Why 70s? Because that's when the ERP systems were born. So if we look from top to bottom, if we look at the supply chain complexity in the 70s, this complexity was very low. We had a linear supply chain. Now we working in a supply chain network, so the complexity is very high. As far as product lifecycle is concerned, in the 70s, products lasted almost forever, years. Now the product lifecycle is very short; it lasts months. Look at the concept of fast fashion in fashion stores, for example. With the product complexity configurations, now it's very high. We have countless configuration of products. We make to order. We even design to order. So complexity is very high, while in the 70s it was very low. It was a simple product lasting forever. In terms of inventories, in the 70s it was okay to keep a large inventory because the complexity was low, product life cycle was long, so we were sure that we could sell these products sooner or later. Now there is a huge pressure on keeping inventories low due to the cost mostly. In terms of the lead time on the demand side, in the 70s, customers were willing to wait weeks and months for the products, while nowadays we are expected to deliver in days or even in hours. On the other side, on the supply side, lead times in the 70s were short because most of the materials were sourced locally. Now we have a very long supply chains, so we need to order far in advance. The other point is very interesting. I am wondering what you're thinking about it, how you experience that in your organizations, your companies. Forecast accuracy. Because product lifecycle was long in the 70s and the complexity of the supply chain was simple and there was not much complexity of the products, it was relatively easy to calculate demand, to calculate the forecast. While now in the 20s, although we have all this AI, we have a huge computing power in the cloud. We have a models, learning models that can help us do forecasting. Still, the complexity of the supply chain, the variability of the product, cause the forecast accuracy to be low. And finally, last but not least, information access, so-called transactional friction, how Demand-Driven Institute calls it, in 70s was low. Obviously, you could place your order with a fax or call your supplier. Now in the 20s, we are all connected with APIs, with our suppliers, with our customers, and any other data source you imagine.
That's fascinating. Thanks for sharing us that background. Very, very interesting to know about the difference in forecast accuracy. Now, hopefully, we'll go into that in more detail because obviously being able to forecast is key to good planning. The other thing you were asking about are the challenges that face the people. So we have a quick survey for those who are watching live. What are the planning requirements and challenges within your company? So we have a quick survey you can fill in from the comment section below. And then later on, we'll be doing some quick questions and answers in order to try and tailor the information that we're giving to be more relevant to you. So looking ahead then, I'm seeing some information here about a bullwhip. Tell me that this is not a new production methodology that you've introduced where we're supposed to sit and just go, that guy's a bit slow and slap him, and he's going to give us better information about planning.
Not exactly. That's not the case. Actually, all the challenges that we presented earlier, Demand-Driven Institute presents as it bottles down to one problem, which Demand-Driven Institute calls the bullwhip effect. Basically, a very small changes on the one side of the supply chain can cause big fluctuations, problems on the other side of the chain. And it's not linear, so it looks like a bullwhip. That is why it's called a bullwhip effect. And it doesn't matter if you start from the supply and go down to demand or the other way around. If you start from the small fluctuation in demand, then you can get a big disruptions in supply and material and production. Okay, so the main core concept of the demand-driven MRP is to introduce buffer stock. Of course, we will not get rid of the problems. We will not get rid of this bullwhip effect. This is going to be still there. But introducing strategically positioned buffers should reduce this bullwhip effect, should help us cope with the supply chain problems.
Okay, so a good buffer is the answer instead of a good bluffer. So how is this different to, the stuff that we've been hearing for years on from Henry T. Ford? How does this move people forward? How does this make planning better? What we all care about here is really the business case. So how has it changed?
So actually, the concept of DDMRP developed by Dr. Ptak and Mr. Smith did not come from the thin air. That's just like a chain of thinking, starting from Henry Ford, his production line, a breakthrough at that time. But actually, some of the people claim it's a perfect lean system because there is no stock in between and all the work orders work with the same pace. Then going to the lean, Taiichi Sono, and the first introductions of buffer Kanbans, and then going to Eliyahu Goldratt with the theory of constraints and introducing a buffer to protect your bottlenecks in order to maximize your throughput. Eliyahu Goldratt says throughput is your capability of earning money through time. So it should introduce your buffers to protect your bottlenecks. And the Ptak and Smith says, okay, buffer is a very important thing. We should position the buffer strategically, and we should all our actions should be triggered by what's going on in the buffer. If the buffer is depleted, that's when we should start acting.
Okay, that all sounds very nice in theory. What are the components of this? What does it actually look like in practice?
So in practice, we know now that the core concept is to have a strategically positioned buffer. If you have this buffer, you need to calculate the size of it and the profile and the level. You must be ready to do it not only once, but dynamically, as often as possible, preferably daily. Then once you have that, depending on your net flow position, you should calculate what you should do, what to produce, what to purchase. That's demand-driven planning. And finally, coming directly to Taiichi's own lean manufacturing, you should have that visual so you can easily make a decision what to produce and when to produce.
So it's all about the buffer. Tell me more about this. What is it? How do we work out what it is? I'm confused. Tell me you're going to give me something here that's going to make my life easier, Pavel.
Okay, so now we know that we need buffers. Okay, we need to have them strategically positioned, not everywhere, but only strategically positioned. And if we want to position them strategically, of course it's a brainstorming thinking process in your organization. But in order to position them strategically, you should consider these 6 elements: customer tolerance time. If it's very low, you need to position your strategic buffer close to the finished product. Market potential lead time. Maybe your customer does not require you to shorten your lead time, but is willing to pay you a hefty bonus if you do so. Then it's also an indication you should take into consideration. Sales order visibility horizon. If you have a very high perspective, I mean, a very bright visibility horizon, you may keep your stocks down. You may reduce number of your buffers. If the visibility is low, obviously you will increase that. Then external variability. Imagine you have product A and product B. You produce product A while customer came for the product B. You already wasted your resources producing product A. You used up your materials, you used up your labor. Maybe, and that's an indication to put your stock as a semi-finished product before you decide if it's going to be product A or product B. This way you will utilize something that is called inventory leverage and flexibility. You will be able to shorten your lead time and respond to the demand better. And finally, going back directly to Eliyahu Goldratt's theory of constraint, your strategically positioned buffers should protect your bottlenecks. That's a critical operation protection.
So basically, this is how to do more with less, and how to please everybody who wants a return on investment, how to please everybody within who has customers shouting at you, how to operate on the leanest possible way.
Exactly. The whole thing about demand driven material requirement planning is not to look blindly at your order and a deadline and try to pull your resources. Rather, you should focus on your buffers. Whatever is going on in the buffer should trigger your actions. But we need to calculate the size of the buffer properly. And in order to do so, we need to explain some basic concepts.
Please do
So
explain these.
okay, so the first concept, look at the graph on the left. We have a product A. In the brackets, you see the lead time of 5 days. In order to produce product A, you need to have a semi-product A1 with the lead time of 15 days and a material 2 and 3 of the lead time 5 days. So total lead time, if you have nothing on stock, is 25 days to produce product A. If you look to the other graph, where we strategically position buffer on a semi-product level, only what's left is to do the final assembly of product A. So your total lead time is reduced to 5 days. And this is something that demand-driven MRP is calling decoupled lead time. That's the first concept. And now let's go forward. It looks a bit complicated, but don't be worried. I will explain that quickly in detail. So your buffer consists of the red zone, yellow zone, and green zone. Top of the red is a minimum quantity, top of the yellow is a reorder point, top of the maximum is green quantity. DDMRP introduces a concept of the net flow. So you compare your buffer not to your on-hand inventory, rather to your net flow, which is on-hand plus whatever is coming in on order from production or purchase, minus qualified demand. What's a qualified demand? Is something you need to ship today, plus a spike day. What is a spike day? If I have an average daily use of the product, I mean, I ship daily around 20 units. I will put my qualified spike horizon level at 20. And if I'm looking to the future on, for example, 5 days, today I need to ship 20, tomorrow 20, but on the third day, 25, this is over the spike. So we will take this 25, add it to the shipment of today, which will give us 45, and that will constitute our qualifying demand in this regard. Now, how to calculate minimum quantity, reorder point, and a maximum quantity? In order to calculate the minimum quantity, you need to sum red base and red safety. What's this red base? It's average daily usage times decoupled lead time. You already know what's the decoupled lead time, times lead time factor. Lead time factor is your subjective opinion. How long is your lead time? It's a fraction that takes value from 0 to 1. If your lead time is long, the factor should be around 1. If the lead time is short, the factor should, if the lead time is long, the factor should be around 1. If the lead time is short, the factor should be 0. It's a fraction, so it's going to reduce minimum quantity. That's why if your lead time is short, you may allow yourself to reduce minimum quantity. Then you calculate red safety, which is red base time variability factor. And the variability factor works more or less the same way as the lead time factor. It's also your subjective opinion, how complicated your product is, how much fluctuates your demand. Again, if the variability is very high, you will have the value around 1. You don't want to reduce your minimum quantity. If your variability is low, your factor should be around 0. You don't want to reduce the minimum quantity. You want to keep that stock. Now, calculating the reorder point on a yellow zone is relatively simple. You just take average daily usage and multiply it with decoupled lead time. Calculating maximum quantity is one of you can do it 3 ways, but you choose the one that's highest. So it's a minimum order quantity. This I think I don't need to explain. Or you can do average daily usage time order cycle. Order cycle means how long you need to wait to reorder. If that's not a problem, you reorder immediately, your order cycle will be 0, and that calculation will not be taken into consideration. And finally, the third way to calculate maximum quantity is average daily usage times decoupled lead time factor. So actually reorder point times a lead time factor. And now with your net flow being in yellow and in red, you need to start acting, and you should produce or purchase so many to top up your stock, your buffer to maximum quantity. So it looks complicated, but actually it's not. You just need to remember that if we calculate our buffer, we need to take into account our average daily usage, our lead time, and our variability. And you compare that buffer not to the on hand, but rather to the net flow, taking into consideration qualified demand.
Fantastic. Now, when Pavel is setting up here for the demo, if you're like me, and the main takeaway point that you took from there was Pavel knows how to do that, then you're in good company, because I literally took out that all sounds very interesting, but complicated. So the big takeaway that I got is you obviously have deep sector experience in this. You're one of a number of consultants that we have here within X Plus. That X Plus is actually one of the top 1% of Microsoft partners worldwide, for a very good reason, and has deep sector knowledge in this. And now you're going to show us that yourself or one of our team can go in with anybody who is listening, set this up for them, show them how to do it, and allow them to get all the benefits this and many other aspects of dynamics into their system. So back over to you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the calculations for buffer levels and net flow are complicated, but the good news is that the system will do it for you. So you don't need to bother with that. Now we see the screen of Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, or actually Supply Chain Management, one of the products of the Finance and Operations family. And here you see a visual dashboard of demand-driven MRP. And on this dashboard, you see the button that allows us to calculate on-demand buffer values. We can do it on demand, but we can also do it as a recurrence in the background. So we don't need to bother about it. This calculation is going to be done by the system in the background for the indicated decoupling points. You can calculate at the same time, of course, the buffer values, but you can immediately do the calculation of average daily usage. You can do the calculation of decoupled lead time and accept these calculations to be valid and be used by the system. But remember, you don't need to do it on demand. You can do it as a recurrence in the background, so-called bad job by Dynamics 365. Once the buffers are calculated, we do a regular master planning. So the DDMRP concept is woven into the functionality of MRP that was already available in Dynamics 365 before. So you can run the master planning. Again, you can do it on demand, or you can do it as a recurrence in the background. Once the MRP run goes through, you will see your requirements. Please have a look at the decoupling point status by net flow presented here as the styles. We see that the 2 decoupling points are below minimum. One is between minimum and reorder, so a yellow zone, and one is in a green zone. Microsoft also allows to compare that decoupling point status by on-hand. And here you see on-hand critically low, low, average, and higher than the average. You immediately notice that when we do not take into consideration net flow, just on-hand, situation does not look so grave. So there is very big difference and important concept of introducing net flow to the calculation instead of the simple on-hand. Let's have a look at this decoupling points by net flow below minimum. Here you see two positions that are red that require immediate action. But I will turn off the filter on net flow status so you can see also other statuses and we will analyze them in detail. We have item D0010 that is produced in color white, rosewood, oak, and black. And for all these colors, the coupling point was set at the warehouse 51. Let's look at the D0010 white in detail. We have on hand 22 units. Nothing is coming in. We have no open production or purchase orders. And we have a qualified demand of 1. We know it's today's immediate demand. It's not a spike because it's only 1. So our net flow is on hand minus qualified demand equals 21. So now let's have a look at the minimum reorder point and maximum. Since system calculated that our minimum is 8, reorder is 18, maximum is 23, our net flow of 21 is between reorder point and the maximum, so we do not need to act. The planned quantity for the moment is 0. Let's compare that to one of our red positions. Let's look at the oak. So when you look at the color oak, you see that on hand we have 225 units, 45 is qualified demand, today's shipment plus any spikes in the future. So it gives us the net flow of 180. And since our minimum is set to 203, we are in the red, we are below minimum, and we need to act. We need to act immediately. And now I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that Microsoft not only introduced the DDMRP concept to Dynamics 365, that somehow enhanced the experience. So to the DDMRP, Microsoft added the planning priority concept that is also available in Dynamics 365. So not only you see that the positions are in red, you need to act quickly, but also you can decide which one should go first. And here the planning priority value, the lower the value, the higher the priority. We see that out of these two, actually we should start producing oak, only then we can go move to the black because our oak is in dire need of production or purchase. One more thing that Microsoft extended the basic concept of DDMRP is to allow to calculate the buffer values in time. We'll have a look at the buffer values of the oak. Here it is possible to notice that our buffer values, minimum reorder and max, is not only calculated for today's date, but also for the future days, 29th and 30th. We have a graph presenting us the green zone, yellow zone, and red in time, as well as our net flow and our on hand. So we can quickly analyze and make a decision based on the situation. The other enhancement that Microsoft introduced to the DMRP concept with Dynamics 365 supply chain management is to add adjustment factor. Okay, imagine we have a good sales, our average daily usage is growing, so does minimum reorder and maximum points, but our sales manager steps in and says there's something going to happen on the market that we cannot influence, but our demand is going to be halved soon. So of course, the DDMRP concept is self-correcting. If demand is not going to be there, we will stop producing. The minimum reorder and max points are going to go down, but we can somehow speed it up using demand adjustment factor, reducing that factor, and make an appropriate calculation and update for the future our minimum reorder and max points. And now, if we look more to the details, we'll also notice some additional enhancement. Let's have a look at the coverage group. Coverage group is a system setup that decides how the decoupling point acts on a given warehouse. In this regard, Oak and Warehouse 51. Let's look to the details of the coverage group. Here you can notice that when we calculate average daily usage, we use the past values of the past 5 days, but we can also use the forward values. Why to look in the future in such a case? Because of the product variability and a short life cycle. Maybe we'll not have a history. This is going to be new product. In order to keep the whole process automatic, in such a case, we rely on a forecast provided by the sales team or already registered open orders. Not only that, we can use a blended approach. Okay, so then we can look in the past and to the future at the same time. But in such a case, we would need to use the weights, saying which one is more important, future or the past. Remember the story about the sales manager coming in and saying that our demand will be halved. Okay, here let's say there is no manager, but we have an open orders. Okay, that are showing us that the demand will change in time. So using the weights, we can uh, act uh, uh, faster. Okay, and not only the Dynamics 365 itself. It must please remember that Dynamics comes with other Microsoft products like Power BI. And here I have embedded the Power BI report that helps me to analyze my demand. I'm looking at the back orders registered for color oak. Okay, uh, and I see here that my demand is quite stable. I have 20 units every day. I'm looking 5 days in the future, so most probably I will set my spike threshold to 20, and here I will immediately notice when my spikes kicks in. So my qualified demand will be whatever I need to ship today, plus any registered spike in the horizon I'm looking at. So my qualified demand is going to be 45. Because of a short time, we jam-packed together the presentation about the system. But if you're interested in details, of course, please reach out to us. We will gladly prepare a separate presentation for you to an in-depth deep dive deep dive presentation. What I want to say is just the Microsoft team, Dynamics team, I think made an excellent job to blend the possibilities of the standard MRP system with the new concept of DDMRP and went even beyond, put an added value to the experience.
Thanks very much, Pavel, for giving us that, relatively quick demo to give us a flavor of what the capabilities are. Obviously, as Microsoft themselves say, the success of implementation, about 22% of it comes down to the software, and the other 78% comes down to the partner and obviously the deep sector knowledge and expertise that they can bring to leverage to get you successful outcome. We have here something very, very interesting, and it probably shows why so many people are swapping over from other platforms and why you have CFOs, CEOs, marketing managers all advocating for this because of the typical improvements. Can you talk us through some of those improvements that we have seen?
So the Demand-Driven Institute tells us that we can improve customer service, we can reduce lead time, we can balance our inventory, basically reduce it still even more, simultaneously lowering our operational cost, and of course we can improve the planning. Coming back again to the basic concept, you don't blindly change the open orders with the deadlines, uh, trying to expedite yet another order. What you want to do is to focus on your strategically positioned buffers and make sure they are refilled on time. And this will give you an excellent results, uh, your stock, your operations, your costs.
Fantastic. We're going to move on now, and our lovely Agata, who's been hiding in the background, is going to show us the results of the survey.
While we're waiting for the survey results, maybe I'll mention that the way the DDMRP is implemented in Dynamics 365 is not a revolution, it's an evolution. If you're using Dynamics 365 already, you can try and test that without really interfering with your current planning model.
Okay, so here we've got the results in. So of the people who actually went through, is this what you would have expected in terms of the things that you're seeing whenever you're dealing with customers and implementations?
Definitely so. I think it indicates that variability is the biggest product, but because it affects not only inventory, but also forecast accuracy and the possibility of delivering lead times. I do believe that these results are not surprising.
Okay. Now, if anybody has posted any particular questions, maybe Agata could flip them up here on the screen. If not, I have a few for you, Pavel.
Sure.
So talk me through then, if you were sitting as a customer, or if one of our listeners are sitting here and thinking about this as an upgrade pathway, how long does this process take? If you're a customer, you're sitting on, say, an older version of Microsoft, how long does it typically take? What would they expect in terms of looking at the upgrade pathway?
Okay, unfortunately, the DDMRP concept is available only with Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management, so the new version of the system. So if you want to use it and you want to use it effectively, unfortunately, for previous versions of the system like AX 2012, this functionality will not be available for you. So the only path is to upgrade your system from AX 2000 to AX 2012 to Dynamics 365. Only then we can implement the functionality.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So I think that's going to conclude. We said that we would do it in 30 minutes, and I think we're at the 31-minute mark. Now, anybody that has any detailed questions about this or anything else relating to Dynamics 365, if you're interested in talking to us, maybe you can go to the next slide, Gata. In terms of a business case, reach out, talk to me, and I will talk to and bring in one of our solution architects again, somebody, either Pavel, depending on the sector, or one of our other experts from the other industries that we work in, be it construction, fintech, medtech. And what we will then do is we will look at tailoring something specific for you. If you have technical questions, you can also talk to Pavel directly. His encyclopedic knowledge of all this is absolutely phenomenal, and any question that get asked, expect a nice, detailed, thorough, well thought out, well structured answered. So I think that wraps up about everything it is from us. Thank you very much for those of you who joined. Pavel, thank you very much. Agata in the background. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.